Beyond.
Hey, you did it.
Beyond. Hey, that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Beyond.
No, don't.
Beyond.
Oh, I'm so tired from all that shouting that we did.
We kept it pretty low-key this time.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Podcast Beyond, episode 439. I'm Max Scoville. Here's Brian Altano.
What's up?
And Alana Pierce.
Hey.
Goldfarb and Marty are off in the far-off land of Japan.
Yeah.
Doing some stuff.
Top secret adventure.
Very nice adventure that they're
They're
having.
trying to win all the edible food out of the prize claw machines. That's
The
a real thing.
prize
you can do
claws
that.
are a big ongoing issue there. We do have some stuff to talk about. We have to cut this short because they're going to be gassing the office because there have been flying termites everywhere.
Yeah.
Hopefully we've keyed them out of this video, but they're gross and it's very bad. So let's talk about games.
That's right. This was a weird, giant week for games because I'm playing two of them at the same time, and they could not be more different.
So if you didn't love video games already, you will after this week because you'll have Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah.
Because a mixture of cruelty and niceness will do that. And Dark Souls 3 and Ratchet and Clank both came out on the same day, which is like, wow.
Beautiful.
Well, so to kind of like jump mediums for real quick, a couple months ago, Deadpool came out, and it was the highest grossing R-rated film for all of in the history of February's, I believe. And then Batman vs. Superman came out a couple weeks ago, and that broke records too. And a lot of people are looking at them like, wow, these are basically like summer blockbusters that are happening all year. And I think like for the first time ever, games are really starting to do the same thing. We're just like, Namco's just like, hey, what are you doing in April? And they're like, I don't know, just hanging out. And they're like, yeah, how about Dark Souls? How about you go to hell? And you're like, all right, I guess we'll go to hell. And at the same time, Ratchet and Clank are like, remember us? We're back. So I'm playing both those games at the same time right now, and it's totally messing with me because I'll get kind of fed up with one or bored with one or get murdered a lot in one. I guess you can probably guess which one that is. It's not the one with the robot and the weird raccoon boy. And then I'll jump to the other. What's up?
What kind of animal is he? I don't remember the name
Ratchet?
of it.
It's called like a
It's a cute name.
coccyx or something.
What?
That sounds close.
A cloaca.
No.
No.
Capricorn.
Definitely no. It's really cute, whatever it is. It's a cute name.
Coagula.
He's a lombax.
Lombax.
It's not a real animal.
No, it's not. He's definitely not.
It's a space animal.
Yeah, so they could have they just made up a word there.
Yeah, so Marty reviewed Ratchet and Clank. He gave it, I think, a 9 out of 10.
You and I have both played about an hour of it.
Yeah. It is one of the best looking games I've ever played.
So pretty.
This is, I feel like we're at that point where it's like, this is why you bought a PS4.
Yeah.
Like, it is just so stunningly, like, I think between this and Uncharted, it's going to be like, yep, here we are. This is it. They figured it out. They got the hang of it. And I think everything from this point forward is probably going to be compared to these kind of these two benchmarks.
It looks like a Pixar movie.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, the lighting is amazing. It's super pretty, but it's also an incredibly fun game. I think you've played the most of the three of us, Brian.
Yeah. Do you guys remember that that quote about Pixar quality games?
No.
It was I forget who it's from. It was from I think it was from Warren Spector. It says, once we can do Pixar quality graphics rendered in real time with interactivity, I could see games costing $200 million to make, and all of a sudden you have to sell a lot of games. The Pixar quality graphics was sort of this barometer for like, here's how good graphics are going to be. And you actually heard people saying it around the time of the Xbox and even the Xbox 360. Now keep in mind, Pixar movies looked worse back then too.
Yeah.
If you go back and you watch the first Toy Story or even like The Incredibles, you're kind of amazed at how minimalistic they look compared to things now. But yeah, Ratchet and Clank, it's first of all, it's a remake, which is it's like half a remake, half a brand new thing. Second of all, it's $40, which is
it
like
really?
Wait,
it's
really?
It's $40.
Damn.
Which is like what?
That's crazy.
Like it's nuts to me, and I don't know why. I mean, I don't really get into the debates about video game pricing because to me, it's tough to say that Gone Home's worth $20 versus Battlefront's worth $60 with $50 a season pass. Like to me, they all get filed in my brain the same way of whether I liked them or whether I didn't. But this game being $40 is kind of ridiculous. But yeah, this is the closest I think we've seen to that sort of cartoon Disney-esque. Everything has this sort of fluid life to it, Pixar quality graphics.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a cool time to be alive, to be able to play a 3D platformer that looks like this.
You know, it's weird because we play grown up games, we play mature stuff, and we get this like this like Last of Us storytelling and things that we're like, oh, this is so mature for the medium. But at the same time, like when something comes along and is like, hey, cartoon characters shooting stuff with lasers and jumping around on platforms, and it looks and just feels how it should.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You know,
Yeah,
and
it's the way that it feels for sure. It's
Yeah.
like everything's really, really fluid, and there's also like insane weapon variety, the likes of which some mature games just take themselves way too seriously to ever have.
Yeah.
So there's like a fun that exists in a game that isn't trying to be mature out of that.
That's really interesting you say that, because I remember there was a time, probably, and it's weird because it's kind of like when first-person shooters first started getting consoleized. Like you look at Turok, right? Like Turok started
love
out,
Turok.
yeah, and it had that weapon, the cerebral bore, which removed your brain. And it's like totally ridiculous and over the top. And you don't really see a lot of stuff like that in like Call of Duty, because like everything's sort of tethered into the reality that someday this might be a real weaponized manufactured item for the military. So I kind of miss that idea of being like, I'm playing an over the top video game, so I should have over the top weapons, but also having it being kind of gritty and realistic. But Ratchet and Clank handles that while still being kid friendly and fun, which I think is a really smart way of doing it.
The only game that I can think of like that took itself seriously but also had cool weapons is recently at least is Fuse.
Yeah.
But that game wasn't very well received.
That's another Insomniac game.
Yeah, it is.
That was going to
That's
be
true. It's the exact same team.
Yeah,
so.
I mean they're kind of known for doing cool weapons in games.
Yeah, that's
that
exactly
was
that thing.
that game. I really hated that game because it set itself up to be was it Overkill or was it over something?
Yes, it was over
Overstrike,
something,
Overstrike,
and then
that's
it had
it.
this cool,
Now we've got
fun
Overwatch
trailer,
and- yeah.
and then they completely changed
No,
what it was.
It looked like it looked somewhere between Ratchet and Clank and like G.I. Joe.
So the reason they changed it was
Yes.
supposed to be because they didn't want to compete with Borderlands. It was to do with the timing of the release. So they were like, oh, we can't compete with Borderlands. Let's make it more serious.
Yeah, that was also their first time partnering with EA to do.
I think that probably
cross-platform.
would have been EA's choice.
I feel like that was an EA thing.
Yeah.
Like I remember just going into that game being like, all right, I'll give it a shot. That is one of the most soulless and just it's like it functions, it's fine, but it's also just like there's such a massive absence of any
of
personality.
anything.
I mean,
yeah.
the box art literally has their faces cut off on it. That's how deprived of personality
Yeah.
it was.
So I played that game co-op,
Yeah.
which meant that it was automatically fun because I was playing it with a really good friend.
Yep.
And I had a lot of fun with the weapons, but I remember also, like, I don't know what I liked about it or what I didn't like about it. I just can't even remember that game very much.
Yeah, because
That's like that movie
'cause it's
San
nothing.
Andreas,
Yeah.
where I watched it,
Yeah.
and I think
You're
I had
like,
a good time.
Oh, that's a thing that I saw.
Yeah.
Like,
But when you think back on it, you're like, I don't remember a moment of that.
Yeah.
there's
you know?
no way I could have played through Fuse by myself, I don't
Yeah.
think.
It's
So-
like
I had
we
to
have,
I had to review it, and I think it's one of my least favorite reviews ever, just because it was like I was like I know what this is. I have to complete this. I have to see it through, but I know it's not going to get any more interesting.
Yeah, that
like,
sucks.
And I think there were like sort of you. I mean, that's the thing is you didn't really get new. Sorry,
No.
I don't know when.
You never
write down
got
whatever.
You never got new weapons or anything. Like it was always just the same stuff. It was like maybe I think a couple of boss fights that were kind of hard, but I felt like they never really escalated. Like that game wasn't very
Yeah.
good. So it's like if that had the personality or flavor of Ratchet, then maybe
Yep.
it would have been a better game.
Yep,
Yeah.
completely.
But that was an adult Ratchet and Clank.
It's weird. Max and I talk a lot about airplane movies, and not like the movie Airplane, but like movies
Yeah,
that
watch it on a plane.
Yeah, like you're like, watch on a plane, like something that doesn't really matter, like kind of like Iron Man 2,
Yeah.
you know, or like San Andreas, or like, what are those dumb, like any movie, what was that dumb movie that just came out a couple months ago that did really well that was terrible? I mean, that's describing all of them.
Oh, Kingsman.
No, the one after that, the Gods one.
Oh, the Egypt one?
Yeah.
Gods of Egypt.
Gods of
Oh,
Egypt
yeah.
is the kind of movie where you have 2 drinks on a plane and you watch it,
have
but we
no
don't
interest
really
in
have
that.
like
Plane games.
plane games.
I mean,
Yeah.
we do. They're just like they're crappy phone games, you know.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of like, because there's no way to just sort of be like, I got a few hours to kill. I'll play it on a console, because games are pretty expensive, so it's hard.
Yeah,
it's the
but I
barrier
like
of
the
entry.
idea of that, of
Yeah.
describing something as a plane game. Like, what's a game that you would describe as being like playing on a plane?
Something like Fuse.
Something
you know?
like Fuse,
Yeah, like
yeah.
totally. Something like that.
Differences between games and movies is you sit there and watch a movie in 2 hours, give or
Yeah.
take, it's over.
Yeah.
A game you have
It's an
to
investment.
force yourself through it
But
sometimes.
it's also, movies being 2 hours means they can't suffer from that same kind of repetitive
Yeah.
stuff that Fuse did.
You would think that, but they find a way
I mean,
sometimes.
I'm sure some would, but
Mm-hmm.
not half as bad. Like, Fuse is totally a thing that I could have played for 2 hours and it would have been fine. But playing it,
Yeah.
the whole thing was like,
So-
well, this is not fine.
So Ratchet and Clank to me is it's a triumph for a number of reasons. One, because it's an age-old mascot platformer.
Yeah.
And two, that it's such a gorgeous game, and it's a PlayStation exclusive platforming game.
Yeah.
Like we just don't get a lot of 3D platformers. I know you're holding out for a Ukulele,
Oh,
which
that's
is
so bad.
Which is like a kickstarted pipe dream based on, it's sort of a semi-half sequel to the old Banjo-Kazooie N64 platformers. If you grew up in our era of video games or your era in video games, you grew up playing mascot platforming games.
Yeah.
And they've always been a thing. And then they just kind of went away. They went away for a long time because it became such an oversaturated market.
Yeah, I mean, Donkey Kong Country is still very good.
Yeah.
Like Wii U, Tropical Freeze is a great game.
Right.
It's still a very good game, but I mean, that's not 3D. It's 2D.
Yeah, it's
So
side-scrolling.
technically-
I kind of hope we see a new Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah.
Like, how cool would it be if, like, you know, Naughty Dog come out and they're like, hey, so Uncharted's gotten real dark, but here's something to cheer you up. We
Yeah.
went ahead and got Crash Bandicoot back from whoever, it was like Universal or Activision had him for a while, but it's like if Sony kind of brought that guy home and they were like, hey, what does Crash Bandicoot do in 2016? And they did something on par with the new Ratchet and Clank that had that same kind of vibe to it. I'd be really happy about that.
So that's the thing about this game is that the idea of remaking something that's beloved that you grew up with is always so dangerous. Like you look at, for example, what Microsoft did with Conker recently, and they just completely botched his character design and threw him in a bunch of weird
Spyro
minigames.
and Skylanders looks really different. People hate it.
Yeah, people got me really upset about that. I mean,
that was stupid.
People are deeply
but
connected
kids
to
don't
this
care.
stuff.
Yeah. Skylanders, I think, is awesome. I love Skylanders.
I really like Skylanders a lot.
I kind of like it because they were like, yeah, so we got a dragon in there. I mean, they used Spyro as kind of like a launching board for this whole basically Pokemon knockoff, so to speak. But they were like, yeah, here's a little goblin with guns, or here's a plant that smokes weed, or whatever.
I mean,
the hell they
I
do.
always liken Skylanders to Diablo. It's Diablo light.
Completely.
Like,
totally.
I love that about it. Because you know how kids, like, swap their toys? I don't. I just level the hell out of one character and, like, get all of the abilities with that one character. And, like, this is my very easy Diablo.
So you play like a regular kid and not a rich, spoiled brat kid who has all the toys.
Yeah. Also, like, Spyro can just eat some farts because they got Drobot in there, who's a dragon robot.
My favorite is, I think its name's like Spitfire or something, which is also just another fire dragon, really. But I put a cool top hat on him.
Yeah, you get hats for your stupid little
very
animals.
fancy.
I like Jetvac. He's an eagle.
So Spyro is safe. He's in the universe of lucrative joy right now. His games are making a ton of money, and that universe he's in is making a ton of money. I think that people need to play Ratchet and Clank. People need to go out and buy Ratchet and Clank. You need to A, support it because it's an awesome exclusive. B, support it because it's a dying genre on a system that doesn't really have a lot of games like this.
I mean, I can't think of really any others.
No, nothing really. I mean, like we pretty much mentioned them all.
I mean,
like,
Disney Infinity.
Yeah, that's
Lego
about
games,
as close as you can
kind of
get.
it,
Yeah.
but they're like that's
It's still
other
like
properties.
a whole other thing.
Yeah, and even the Lego games aren't great platformers.
No.
They're more beat 'em ups.
Yeah, they are.
And you look at something like Super Mario 3D World, which is fantastic. Nintendo makes something like that like once every 5 years, maybe. And
Nintendo still does a very good job with it, though.
They still get it.
Whereas, your comment on Conker, no, not Conker, sorry. The other man,
Bandicoot?
yes, Crash Bandicoot.
He's not a man. He's a bandicoot now.
Small bandicoot. Well,
now you hear
he
he's
does not
it's
look like a bandicoot. He's an orange guy.
I don't think you know what a bandicoot looks like because
to be honest, I don't really.
it looks like a very modeled pig skunk.
He's a Lombax, actually.
But with Ratchet and Clank, like, I don't know if we need another Crash. I mean, they're totally different games, but I would want them spaced apart. I wouldn't want like another Crash Bandicoot this year to follow out after Ratchet and Clank immediately. I would want.
But I do think it
wait.
sends if this game is successful, which I hope it will be because it's great. I think it will hopefully send the message
that we want more of that.
we want more stuff like this, and there's more room for 3D platformers. Like I think a lot of people have just associated platforming games with like kind of childish and kiddie, and they shove them on the Nintendo consoles, and like playing something that looks this good on the PS4, but it is as polished and as fun as some of the best stuff Nintendo can do, and the fact that it's an exclusive game on PS4 is huge.
Yeah.
So like sending that message that this is great and we want more stuff like this I think could really open up the floodgates and maybe create a 3D platforming renaissance.
Yeah. And an interesting side note to that is I went and saw the Ratchet and Clank movie.
Yeah.
Do we know what that comes out? I think I'm just going to go under the assumption that it's still under embargo, but it doesn't look as good as the game.
Interesting.
That's really all I can say.
Really?
But surprisingly, it compared to...
I think you can make that assessment based on the trailers, too.
True.
I mean,
it compared to a Pixar movie is like, wow, this really doesn't look that good. But then the game is like, damn, this looks good. It's like...
Yep.
It's
which is odd. That's an odd thing to compare.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
I completely am with you, though. Like, the game is really good, and it's like... Like, take a break from getting murdered and slaughtered and shooting stuff in the face with real guns, and get a wacky gun that turns people into Minecraft blocks, and or a funny flamethrower.
It's also really easy to consume. Like, Dark Souls can be stressful to consume.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about Dark Souls. Let's talk about video games and difficulty and fun challenges.
That's a weird Venn diagram.
Yeah,
right there,
it
right?
is.
Video games, difficulty.
Well, I think usually people think video games and fun it's not a Venn diagram. It's two circles perfectly overlapping.
Now you had a thing. You haven't played Dark Souls, right?
This is my first Dark Souls game, but I got really into Bloodborne and played it to the end.
Alana, what about you? Are you Dark Souls savvy?
I really like Dark Souls.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't touched any of it. I touched Dark Souls for a second, and I was like, okay, this is a hard game, whatever. I've never been one for like difficulty in games. Like, that's just hasn't been my jam. Like, sometimes there's something that's challenging, and I'm like, oh, cool, I'd beat the thing. But like, generally, I just kind of like to explore, and like, it's a different way.
Dark Souls is great to explore.
Sure, but it's also like gonna punch you in the face repeatedly.
Yeah. So the thing that I mean,
junkyards are fun to explore, but sometimes there's scary dogs in them, and they bite you in the leg, so you shouldn't go in there.
That's actually a fantastic metaphor.
It is. Now I'm like,
really good.
Wait, do I really like Dark Souls? No, the thing that
do
I
you
like
really
about
junkyards?
Yes. The thing that I really like about Dark Souls, and I consider myself to be really passionate about, is the combat isn't hard or punishing. It's patient. Like, you just have to. It's entirely a dance. The whole thing is like a step. You see someone take a step, you take a step. Mm-hmm. Like, the whole thing is timing based, and it's not that it's hard because it doesn't punish you for no reason, because every time you die, it's like, this was my fault.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not that the game is overly hard. It's just, it's
grueling.
It's very hard, but it's not in a way that's like hard for no reason, or it probably is that it's fair.
I think the difficulty is
you.
amplified by that sort of gambler's luck ideology of being like, I could walk away from the table right now and I'd be up a lot, or I could take one more swing at this thing and I lost everything.
It's also all of the stuff that you lose when you die.
Yeah,
it has a big weight. To it,
that's a big part of it.
The gambling thing.
So I said on, I believe, last week's Beyond that I wasn't going to jump into this game because of personal reasons, and I wanted something a little more lighthearted. And I played about 5 or 6 hours of Ratchet and Clank and had a great time. And the opportunity came up to jump into Dark Souls, and I was like, sure, let's do it. And immediately, just incredibly beautiful game.
Yeah.
Just like that's the thing that's it's so weird about this, because it's like walking through an art gallery that is constantly on fire. And you're like, I want to get through that fiery tunnel to see the paintings on the other side, but the fire will kill me.
Yeah.
So you're torn between, like, around every corner is one of the most gorgeous sunsets you've ever seen in a video game, but you
take a left around the corner, something will kill you.
Exactly. And I actually kind of like that fear, that cautiousness.
I mean, and sometimes Dark Souls is unfair, and it'll be like a boulder or a trap. You just die.
That's
just straight up die.
That I hate.
That's uncommon, though.
Yeah.
It's not, most of the fights aren't like that. But
I like what I like more is, like, you come up a mountain ridge, and it's this purple moonlight, like, just coming down over the hill, and it's beautiful, and you turn the corner and there's just like a shadowy figure just breathing and panting and standing in place, and you're like, I don't know what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how I'm going to handle this.
All of the enemies that you fight, especially the bosses, the way that they're presented, like the arenas they present them in, and the way that they look is awesome. Like, they always, like, literally awesome, not colloquially. Like, it inspires awe. They just look so freaking cool. And, like, I haven't played Dark Souls 3 yet. I got my code today, but from what I have seen of it, like from streams and videos of people talking about it, it's like some of those boss fights. There's one where it's like this giant tree.
Oh yeah.
It just has like these trunks that seem to just like tendril forever, and
totally stole that from Kirby.
Compared to the tree.
Yep. You got to catch apples and throw them at him.
Side note: be very careful about boss spoilers for Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Oh right.
People
do get mad.
Sorry, I don't want to spoil the tree boss.
I could actually be wrong. It might not even.
There's an ocean, an entire ocean full of snakes.
The cloud boss is very difficult because it is far away in the distance and cannot be defeated in the game. Also, it's just a cloud.
There's a 70s beat cop with a mustache made of scorpions, and he fights you and he gives you a ticket.
But no, like, I've always been really kind of self-conscious about the fact that I suck at video games. I'm not good at video games, and like, I work in video games, so that's kind of this weird, like, I'll meet people who they got into working in games because they were good at them. Like, they maybe started out as pro gamers or something. Like,
sure.
And there's always been this kind of like imposter syndrome where I've been like, oh man, like I'm not good enough at games, therefore I shouldn't be here. But like,
that's silly.
I hate it. Sucks. It's stupid.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
no, it's incorrect. It is like,
I don't buy into that.
Yeah, no, exactly. You're talking about this, about how you went on Twitter and you were like, yep, played Dark Souls, died 7 times on the boss, took a shot of vodka and curled up in the fetal position. Yep. And then everyone replies to you and they're like, pussy.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, like, okay, like, I mean, I guess I just hate it because like I like games because they're going someplace else and doing other stuff. And some people I know, they kind of channel their escapism is like the same way that people watch horror movies, where they're like, I want to give myself something different to worry about, or I want to have a challenge that is kind of compartmentalized in this fictional realm. Whereas it's like, I feel like the stuff that I challenge myself with is real life. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with challenging yourself with a game, but it's an entirely different appeal.
Yeah.
Like, I like the idea of exploring Dark Souls, but there's a whole lot of dudes in there who are trying to stop me from exploring it. Meanwhile, if I'm going to be like trying to be competitive, like, I mean, I have a career. Like,
sure.
I have a fiance. Like, there's
a couple thoughts on that.
There are other arenas.
Number one, I saw a couple of people were sort of like jokingly saying like maybe they should make a Dark Souls with like an easy mode so that people can explore it. And to me, I was kind of like, well, no, that's sort of like PG Deadpool. It's like it kind of defeats the purpose. I don't think that everything has to be for everyone. It's like being like, can I have a really like, let me get the spiciest pepper in the world, but then make it really mild. You're like, well, then don't. Yeah. You don't get the spicy pepper. Point. You're missing the point. But so I do think that I do respect the Bloodborne Dark Souls franchise. I respect the fact that any game that is so difficult that you need to learn and get good to overcome it is something awesome. If you listen to my rant last year about Bloodborne, like I mean, I get it. I understand it. That being said, video games are so the video game industry is so wide and multifaceted that I think that to be into it, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be awesome at it. Like in the same way that you can be a football coach without being an amazing football player, you can be a football mascot without being an amazing football player. You can be
a water boy.
You can be a water boy.
Yeah.
You could be a commentator. You can just do commentary.
That's basically what we do.
Yeah,
is commentary.
Yes,
that's the part that we do.
And that's not as easy as some people look at it. And for other people, it's like you can get into video games. Like, and the same people were always like, how do I get a job at IGN? And I'm like, well, what do you do? I mean, do you want to get into marketing, engineering, product? Do you want to be a host, producer, a writer, an editor? Do you want to chop up videos? Do you want to do art for us? Like, you can be into video games because you love the art of video games or the music of video games. You could be into video games because you love sales data. Like, so one of the things I totally geek out on is NPD. Every month when sales charts come in, I stand up and I'm like, Goldfarb, do you see what's number 3? Oh, Battlefront beat this or this, and this. Like, it doesn't mean anything, but I'm connected to that part of it because I find it oddly fascinating.
Yeah.
But none of that really means that I'm amazing at all those 10 games on that list or I'm an expert at any of them. But just having a sort of tangential understanding of all of them is enough to get me in the door. So
the tracking sales data or Metacritic even it's a meta game.
Yeah.
Like it is a high score for physical products out there in the wild, or digital products, whatever. But I don't know, like I guess part of me wishes there was not like an easy Dark Souls, but like what if there was a Dark Souls that was more of like a survival horror?
Sure.
And it's like, you go through that kind of that first stretch of Dark Souls 3. There's like 8 dudes hiding behind boulders jumping out at you, and then you
want a light gun game. That's what you want.
No. I want to explore. I hate light gun games because they're on rails. I can't stand that. That's the opposite of exploration. That's just a crappy haunted house ride. But like I like the idea of getting set loose in this world. I love the lack of explanation Dark Souls has. Like, I like that it's like, hey, get out there and check this out. And there's monsters everywhere. I think that's really cool. But I almost want that like I want to feel like I'm alone. Like, it's too much of a war zone.
The way that I recommend people play Dark Souls, and I kind of do think that Dark Souls is for everyone. I don't think this is really a taste thing. But I basically recommend that if someone plays it, they have a Facebook group with all of their other friends who are playing it, or they look up a walkthrough.
Which
it's
the Beyond guys just did in the Beyond Facebook group. They just started one, so
that's awesome.
Yeah, go look that up.
It's like one of the only games where I would say play it with a guide, and it will actually make it more fun because it's like about learning. It's not just like throwing yourself in there and getting killed. And the community for Dark Souls is amazing, which is why I want to play it right now. It's like I want to come into the office and have those discussions and be like, how did you do this? Oh, did you find this? Like, that world is designed to be spoken about.
Yeah.
And That's probably one of the best things about it. It's like I think everyone would love it. You just have to approach it a different way because it's not like
maybe I'll give it a shot. I
love it so much. Yeah. Like, I mean, I got my code today, so
I think like you make a really good point, and I think that like sort of being a little top heavy with preparation probably makes sense for a scenario like this.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people just think it's like, I don't know, there's that stubborn like man mentality of like, I don't need the instructions, I'll build it myself. I'll fix the car without looking up anything. I'm not going to call, AAA or whatever. Like Dark Souls is the kind of it's a vacation, it's a trip, it's a camping trip. It's like
it is.
Expedition. You have to prepare for it.
Yeah, but so on that note, I think like one of my favorite moments in Dark Souls is when I was playing Dark Souls 1 and people are going to crucify me for not remembering names of things, but there was this one area near one of the first bonfires that you were supposed to go up. I went down, and there were these like ghosts, like just ghost women that you couldn't attack and could kill you in like 3 hits because you had to like have this thing to make you able to actually attack them. And I just kept trying to run through it. I just kept trying to run past all of them, like no explanation for why these weird ghosts were there or why I couldn't attack any of them. And I was like, well, let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
And like ended up getting through the entire thing to be like, oh, well, I wasn't supposed to do that yet. But it was like, that was like just the wonder from that was like, what the hell is this?
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's rewarding, right? Like that's the weird, that risk reward of sort of like the perseverance of getting through it and figuring out how to do it is part of the conquest.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's why I say like, play it with a guide. Don't read ahead.
Yeah.
So it's like play it with one next to you, and like as soon as something is very, very confusing, like text a friend would be before playing it with a guide so you can discuss things because that part's awesome. But don't just get yourself frustrated and bogged down because it's it's not friendly. It's not what we're used to in video games. It's
I guess what I'm saying is like
consumed differently.
It'd be so like imagine Dark Souls if.
I think that you would like Dark Souls.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give it a shot, I'll get in there. But like imagine if it was like Shadow of the Colossus in that it's like the bosses are still there, but they're spaced out more and maybe there's some enemies, but like you're like, what is this world? And it's not like you immediately start off and some guy climbs out of a tree and goes, bah! Like, I mean, I like that they teach you how to play by having those there, but in the same way that like you start Castlevania and you walk right and there's like, you're like, what's going on here? And then the drawbridge comes down and dun 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 dun, and there's a bunch of bats and crap flying around, and it's just, you got to beat up
horrible castle.
You got to fight a candelabra to get a roast
Dark
chicken
Souls,
or whatever.
Part of the whole, what is this pretty world? Can I explore it? Is what the hell is this thing?
Yeah.
Like that is
Sure.
part of the what.
It's your junkyard thing. I mean, like you're going to find some treasures, but there's also going to be rabid dogs everywhere and a weird racist guy with one leg.
Probably more that they're all, the rabid dogs are all going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
Like they're all purple or something, and you're
it's
like,
also,
why?
It's also just incredibly irresponsible of junkyard owners not to have their dogs vaccinated. You just,
it is.
Heads up for
Please
anybody out there.
vaccinate your dogs.
It's true. A junkyard. We have, what do we got to talk about? Titanfall 2. I want to hit on that for a second.
Yeah.
Titanfall 2, it is going to have a worldwide reveal on June 12th. That's right around E3, right? We're kind of in the weird dead zone before E3 where there's things being sat on by...
Yes, the best we can hope for right now are leaks, which will definally be coming very soon.
Or teases. So.
Yeah.
But we got a Titanfall teaser trailer, and it's got this guy with a South African voice, and he's talking about... who cares? It's like voiceover for a teaser trailer, and then you see like a Titan with a sword, which is cool.
In the jungle.
The robots have a
robots and swords. My god.
Yeah. No, that's
Big
good.
fan.
That's very good news. We like that. Titanfall, the first one, such an awesome game when you're in the middle of it playing it. But as far as like it being a thing that you can play on 1 or 2 systems, and you got to find people to play online with, the fact that there's no story mode or anything, and I guess what they did was they kept dropping map packs, but then like not everyone, like it was more DLC and it just kind of fragmented the audience.
Yeah.
So
dispersed people basically.
Which sucks.
It's a big worry for.
It was also early in the, or it was almost a launch title.
Yeah.
So it came out right after.
I think it came out in like February.
I think a lot of companies are trying to find.
They're
trying to find that balance between releasing a lucrative multiplayer game that has longevity. That continues to be lucrative over the course of its longevity, but it's still inviting to people who've never played it before. So like, people tweeted us almost all the time, like, "Hey, should I get into Battlefront now?" And we're kind of like, "Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, it's $20 on GameFly right now, so like if you haven't jumped into it, get it." And we love all the DLC, but again, like when this game's done, 100% done in next January,
that game's not done yet.
Yeah,
like I'll be honest. I think Titanfall's kind of the same way. They were like. I mean, Street Fighter V is the same way. Like, we're seeing this left and right. Like, it's just these games, they come out. Yeah, Destiny's a perfect example. It's like, this is how AAA game development is right now, where they've got to hit some benchmark quota, and it's got to hit this release date. like you've got to take it out of the oven early, kind of.
Yeah, look, I played a lot of Titanfall. I would listen to my lectures from university, and I would play Titanfall like almost on mute while I was listening to my lectures. So it would like I did that for hours on end. Was how I did most of my university, was playing Titanfall.
Do you have a weird like negative connection with Titanfall because it reminds you of school now? Like when Titanfall 2 comes out?
No, it's like it made school better.
Okay.
Yeah, so it helped.
That's good.
Yeah.
Huh. What are you gonna use, What are you gonna couple Titanfall 2 with?
Anything else? It's like, so Titanfall was fun, but the whole thing still stands that it was, the reason that I could do that with it was because it was so insubstantial.
Right.
I could listen and learn and remember stuff for tests while playing it because it was just, well, I so badly wanted a campaign.
So I'm really torn there because I feel like I almost love, it reminds me of like getting hand-me-down action figures as a kid, and like getting a pile of action figures that maybe they're G.I. Joes or He-Man or whatever, but like I don't know what they're from. So I'm just gonna play with them and make up my own rules. Mm-hmm. And like it's kind of what I like about like non-licensed Lego or Playmobil. Yep. It's like you have to use your imagination somewhat. And the fact that they were like, hey man, Titanfall is set in this crazy world where all this stuff is going on, and you get the X, Y, and Z, and there's a backstory, and you get to go online and read about it. And it's like, yeah, I don't care. Give me a robot.
Yeah.
Give me a robot and give me the gun. I want to jump on the wall. And then it's just kind of like, it just felt like playing with toys. And I like that.
Yeah, I guess maybe.
It's also it's what I like about Dark Souls, because it doesn't beat you over the head with this like opening crawl. They're just kind of like, hey man, kill a skeleton.
Enjoy the thing.
Yeah,
no,
fight the robot.
I did enjoy Titanfall for being as simple as it was. I was probably annoyed by, they had like overlay of people talking in like one of the corners that would like patch together multiplayer. I was like, just shut up. Like, leave me alone. Just let me fight the other robot.
We're going to have story integration. And it was just like a guy opening the door and be like, all right, everybody, good, jump out of the helicopter.
No, it was really stupid.
Who's ready for jumping?
The interesting thing about Titanfall is it's you
could get in a robot and jump around in it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
You could fight other robots while you were a robot.
Okay, do you guys work for Respawn? What's going on?
Also, they aren't robots.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, it's like it's ex-Call of Duty devs, right? They went on to make this game. But then the sort of 1-2 punch was that the next few Call of Duties came out and were totally Titanfalled out. Like that whole like
wall running
mech shooter stuff. So they've been having that kind of weird back and forth, and now the ball's back in Titanfall's court, where I think they have full freedom to go like full crazy sci-fi adventure movie, whereas Call of Duty is always going to be sort of grounded in some sort of reality. Yeah. I know we talked about the Call of Duty that's being rumored, the super futuristic one, which I think will go even out Titanfall.
What I like is that Titanfall basically, it feels like a Call of Duty within a Call of Duty. Yeah. Like when you get into Titan, you're basically a giant Call of Duty player.
Yeah.
But other people can still kill you, and like that kind of odd balance there. You could compare it sort of to getting in a vehicle in Battlefield or Battlefront, but like. That's not really
or becoming a hero.
Yeah, but it's different because everyone gets one. Mm-hmm. Like, and I always like that. I always said that like Titanfall takes like the Oprah approach to multiplayer, where like everyone gets a robot. You get a robot. You get a robot. Who wants a robot? Everybody wants a robot. I always put
mine on autopilot and rarely ever got in it. We just leave it on autopilot and it just like follows you around.
That's so
like
cool.
roams.
I didn't even know you could do that.
A pet
super
puppy.
Cool. There was this one achievement for getting it to drop from the sky and kill someone.
Oh,
I wanted that so bad, but never got it.
Like, I wish I could see that.
I did that, but it's so weird. That's like, I like to get an ice cream and then just let it melt.
No, but it's like something that I look at that I'm like, you got my back, buddy. Like, it's this giant thing that I can hear following me. And
I like to punch people with the robot. I thought that was fun.
I don't know. I like.
There's somebody there who's listening to this, and they're just like twitching and shaking and sweating profusely when we keep saying robot, because it's not a robot. It's a Titan. It's a mech. It's a mech. Who cares? It's a robot.
I just really like the idea of Respawn being like, all right, so we took this risk. We made this thing. People liked it. We're getting the chance to do another one. Let's go crazy. Let's go all out. Like
people
the fact that they have swords and
enough,
stuff now.
But it's like I keep wanting to be like, if it had a campaign, but then like I don't care that Counter-Strike doesn't have a campaign.
Right.
So it's like it's hard for me to be like, why wasn't Titanfall enough? But it wasn't.
It was a plain game.
It was absolutely a plain game.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got some questions from the group. Let's jump on
one more thing real quick. Severed. April 26th. It's on Vita. It's Drinkbox's new game. They're the guys that made Guacamelee.
It's a first-person dungeon crawler. It looks gorgeous. Great music.
It's got Zelda elements and Metroid elements, and this weird sort of like paper cutout clip art.
It looks like a Drinkbox game.
Sounds incredible.
Yeah.
And I mean clip art in a good way, not like in
they kept that they kept that in the oven. Like they were apparently going to release that in spring 2015, but then they got feedback on it. They were like, let's kick it up a notch, and they are releasing it now finally. So
the last time I played it was at PAX East 2015. So a year ago. this month, basically.
Yeah, which we should mention.
Yeah.
Max and I are both going to.
That's right.
Come say hi. Come
Yep.
hang out.
You guys are doing Game Scoop Live and an IGN party?
Yes.
There are IGN parties. We'll
Two parties.
Where can they find
we'll
those
share
details?
links
On your
when we have
Twitters?
them, and-
we'll plug
Not yet.
it on
Yeah.
there somewhere. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coming in hot. I don't know.
And I will not be there. I was supposed to be there, but I'm going to go see family instead. So
Yeah,
hang out with
because you
these
got
guys.
butt
'cause-
problems.
Yeah, my family is going to
some-
help me with my butt.
You got some butt stuff going down. So you got a bad troubles with the rear end.
Moving on.
Moving on. I went in the Podcast Beyond Facebook group, which you can do by going to facebook.com/group/Podcast Beyond. First time I ever got that
Nailed
right.
it.
Wow. Somewhere in there, a good friend of the show, Sean Mesler, put together the Podcast Beyond Dark Souls group, so find that. They're all in there. There's like little microcosmic groups for all those things. But we go in every week and we ask you for questions. And since this is kind of a lighter week on news, we figured we'd spend a little more time hanging out with you guys. So do we have some time?
We got a little bit of time.
What's a little bit of time?
We got
Are we
like
getting kicked out
We
soon?
got 6 minutes.
minutes.
What?
We're gonna kick us out in
Yeah.
6
They're
minutes.
kicking us out in 6 minutes?
Yeah. They're gonna come in with the. They're
I
gonna
feel
come
like we
in.
can probably stretch it to 10.
Yeah.
Let's just do it
Because on
until-
account of Brian's butt problems.
Let's
Yeah.
do it until they start knocking on the door.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
That was his idea, not mine.
That's right.
Just saying.
Matthew Devine says, you should talk about games that you didn't think you would be into but ended up loving. Bloodborne, for sure, for me, was one of those I was like, nah, I'm not going to do this. And it totally grabbed me.
Witcher.
Witcher?
Yeah.
Really?
So I hate to say this, I sort of reviewed Witcher 2 when it came on to Xbox, but having that come out like that was kind of a weird thing because it wasn't built for Xbox.
Right.
It's a second game in a series where the first one isn't on there. It's sort of strange and Polish, and I basically just didn't get it going in. Like I didn't really understand what they were trying to do. And I didn't even finish it, and I was just like, hey, so like I played some time with the game. It's all right, I guess. You know, like it's cool, but it's honestly Witcher 2 on Xbox. It kind of sucks because it's
love that game.
It's an awesome game. It's a fantastic game, but the load times are unbearable.
I don't remember.
It's also a very slow game compared to
It
like
is very slow.
you're exploring this world, but you're like, oh, go kill these little mole men or whatever, and you're like, okay,
Or
fine.
not.
Yeah. So I was like, I want to like it, I really do, and a lot of people were like, I don't think you got it. And I was like, maybe I didn't, you know, like that's fair. And then they announced Witcher 3. And I was like, this looks interesting. And I saw a demo of it at E3, and I was like, okay, I'm revisiting that. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to pay attention. I went back and read the books and revisited Witcher 2, and basically, like, I mean, Witcher 3 is one of my favorite games of, I mean...
So you got like hooked into the entire universe.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it
Yeah.
was like, I guess something was like lost in translation, or it just wasn't prefaced right. Like, you jump into Witcher 2, and the way it's kind of tells you things, like, you start out, you're being, like, questioned, and it's a much more complex way of telling a story in a game than I feel like we're used to.
Right.
So I don't know. Yeah.
Mine would be Wolfenstein: The New Order and /All Crisis 3.
Yeah.
Like, only two that came to mind. I'm sure there's plenty, but those two games specifically, I was like, I have to review this. It looks fine, but then I ended up just loving them.
Yeah.
Did you play Wolfenstein games growing up at all?
I had played one that was on 360.
Right.
I don't remember what it was called,
Yeah.
but didn't particularly like it. And then based on the first, like, you know how the first 2 hours of The New Order just sucks?
Yeah, it's just
really bad.
It's just really sort of bland, generic.
Just like you're in a plane and you're
Yep.
just doing a lot of dumb turret shooting, and then it's just really not good. And that's all I had played
Yep.
at a convention. I was like, I really don't think I'm going to like this game, and ended up loving it and playing through it twice.
Because it totally opens up and becomes like its own thing.
Incredible.
And
It's a really good game.
Yeah, it's very weird. It's like when you watch a movie and the first 20 minutes of it are completely boring, which I was
Yeah.
talking about with Dan Stapleton today, who's our reviews editor, about how in 2016 the idea of sticking with something until it gets good is almost impossible to do.
Yeah.
Like when we were kids, you would rent a game or a movie, or you'd buy a game or a movie, and you would have to watch it because you had no other choice.
Yeah,
It was
you
either that
couldn't
or
do
like
anything else.
read a book.
Yeah.
So the idea, like, I'll put on something on Netflix. I'll watch like a stand-up comedian. If he's not funny in the first two jokes, I X out.
Well, I mean,
and I go
people
to
keep
something
saying
else.
that about like the Marvel Netflix series.
Yeah.
Like all of them. I'm like, I don't want to sit through it all though.
Yeah.
I just don't
Yeah.
want to.
Oh, it gets really good by the 6th episode.
But
yeah.
then conversely, you get people like, yo, man, Arrow's great. You just got to get to the 3rd season. It's like, that's...
Yeah, I'm not going
It's
to do that.
60 hours.
Yeah.
in.
No
yeah.
way.
Ian Lawrence says, Beyond, please ask Alana to talk a little more about PSVR. It's a major shift in video games, and I'd love to hear more about it. Now, I know you spent the entire weekend in an Oculus Rift.
And the whole of yesterday.
Yeah, and all of yesterday. So, we haven't gotten a ton of hands-on time since GDC with
Yeah.
PSVR.
Yeah.
But you've spent more time in VR than pretty much anybody I know. So what's it like emerging from the vault on your head?
There's I keep learning new things about VR. I'm still not bored. So I think at this point, I just finished Chronos, which I freaking adore. It's going to be my highest scored review this year so far.
Wow.
I really like it. It's a VR game, and I managed to get through the whole thing. It is totally not a gimmick. It's a very good game that exists in VR. And I at no point got sick of it or got motion sick or got I guess I got tired. Maybe my eyes were a little bit sore at one
fatigued?
point. Yeah, maybe,
Yeah.
but I wasn't sure if I was just tired or that was because of the game. But you can confirm VR is not a gimmick. It's incredible.
What was the most amount of time you spent in one sitting?
I think it was 4 hours.
Wow.
I missed a meeting. So I was I just forgot time completely. So that's another talking point is
Because you didn't even look at your phone or anything, right?
you can't. You just lose concept of time when you're in VR for a long period of time. I thought it was half an hour, and it was oh, my news shift is done. And I was
'Cause-
I just had no idea what time it was.
That's fascinating because I lose track of time just playing video games regularly. Where I'm I'm going to try to go to bed by this time, and I'm playing a game, and I look up and I'm oh man, it's 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's a school night.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine if I have that already with the ability to occasionally glance at a clock. I can't even imagine when that's
I think
removed.
it's Max who even gave me this analogy, but it's like a casino
Yeah.
VR because
Yeah.
the lighting, you just have no idea that anything is happening
There's no
outside of what
natural
you're
light.
seeing.
There's no clock.
There's no
exactly.
clocks. Yeah.
It's kind of terrifying.
The only thing you're missing is the oxygen being pumped into the box.
And one
Now-
weird thing that I kept having to ask, if someone's around me and I don't know they're there and I want to talk to them while I'm playing VR, I'll be are you still there? Are you still sitting next to me? And then try and talk to someone with no knowledge of where they are because people in
yeah.
the room around you can leave.
Yeah, we were
it's incredibly antisocial.
We were hanging out, and you were playing that on the couch, and I was playing video games or something, and it was really, really weird.
It's like someone else is
It
in
was
a different space.
really
Yeah.
weird. I mean, but you kind of had one headphone off, so it was sort of
Yeah, I always play like that.
Yeah.
Especially if there's people around, just so that I'm conscious of things that are around me. It's also there was one point where I was playing in the living room and someone knocked at the door and I was immediately I can't see who that is. What?
Yeah.
Instead of being oh, it's someone's probably just going to come in. It's someone else lives here. I was just what the hell is that? Because you just have you can't see anything.
Yeah. The passage of time thing is also interesting because, time flies when you're having fun. And I think there is a fundamental kind of just inherent excitement because this is a new way of looking at stuff.
Yeah.
You can chalk that up to being a gimmick, but it's a gimmick that works.
Yeah.
In the same way that there's an inherent novelty.
Yeah.
And
that definitely.
that
yes.
keeps
it is based on a novelty.
Yeah.
But
The fact that moving your head does
is a thing that
something
works.
yeah.
Yeah, but as much as I would always defend it because I'm really passionate about VR, whenever people would ask me if it's a gimmick or if it's not going to last, the more that I play, the more certain I am that it's not a gimmick and this is just something that is just legitimately amazing hardware. It's incredible. So PSVR specifically, like we said, we haven't played since GDC, but I think it's the most comfortable. It's probably the easiest to put on. Oculus is pretty easy, but I think PSVR is easier. It's also supposed to be the one that is the most friendly for people with glasses. It's the cheapest, so that's obviously a huge deal.
Yeah.
And
it's going to get PlayStation games.
Yeah.
Which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
I've also tried the cinematic mode. I tried that with the Vive, but I assume it'll be exactly the same with PSVR. It's basically, when they say that any PS4 game is going to be compatible with it, they're not saying that they're going to be 360. It doesn't make every game 360. So basically what it does is simulate a room and it looks like you're in a cinema and you have a giant screen. So somehow...
I like that a lot because
I just can't explain it.
It's a second TV.
It convinces you that that the screen you're looking at is way bigger than what's before your eyes. It really looks like you have to look up and down to see the entire screen.
Right.
You can move back and obviously the screen will get smaller. It's so hard to explain.
So cool.
Yeah.
But it's basically just another way to look at it that would completely block out everything else. And I think because of the way that works, it makes every game more immersive as well.
Honestly, I want to do that just because I won't get the sun reflecting on my TV.
Yeah.
That's kind of an awesome thing. It's just, hey, I'm in a tiny room
I've been
on my face.
reviewing an Oculus game without a monitor the past week.
That's blown my mind.
Yeah.
Is that
No monitor.
Yeah, just plug it in.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Any other questions? Want to hit a couple more?
Sure. Let's see. Dallas John Brewer says, "What's your opinion on the Battlefront DLC?" We both put in a lot of time in this new the first DLC drop of the 4 that they're doing, part of the season pass. It took 4 months for that to pay out for us.
So basically, It's got this Jabba's Palace map that is hands down my favorite map in the entire game.
Sounds so cool.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
It's huge. It goes from basically the front door where you see Luke and 3PO walk in, all the way to the back garage door where the sail barge is, and then there's just a bunch of like crap in the desert. So basically you get to run through Jabba's whole house, and there's this big disgusting like mud bath toilet room where he like apparently takes baths or whatever, and there's like messed up old droids, and basically you get to explore that entire area.
That's so cool.
And
it feels post Return of the Jedi, because there's a pit that you can fall into that has the Rancor, and he's dead. And he's covered in flies.
But the sail barge is also there. I mean, it's anachronistic.
I think he has a couple cars, you know.
In the same way that...
He's like Jay Leno.
In the same way
so
that
means it's multi-tiered? Like, if you can fall in the Rancor pit, you can also get back up?
Yep.
You can go down that chute. There's a drop down there where you can get items and stuff. It's
yeah, I feel bad for my teammates because there's a lot of times where I'll die because I'm walking around.
Is that like the dead guy in the doorway?
Kinda, yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's a jail cell with Gamorrean guards, and they're all just grunting. I got to show you that.
Yeah. Anyway, I love it so much. There's the Sullust or the Tabana refinery or whatever, which I'm less fond of, but it's still all right.
I actually really like that stage.
It's weird, though, because the DLC right now, because it is still, I think is it still early access, or is that open to everybody? It's probably just about to. We were on early access, which I think in order to do that, because it's less people playing, they basically had this mandatory playlist that was just like Outer Rim playlist, which sort of sucks because you jump in and it's like heroes versus villains, and I'm like, there's 4 heroes and 4 villains. I don't want to play this mode right now. Like, and that just became tedious. I'd rather play like. Basically, I just want to play Jabba's Palace.
Yeah.
So.
They added a bunch of new weapons and items and star cards, but the interesting thing about unlocking them is you have to do these things called Hutt contracts, which is basically Jabba the Hutt's like it cuts to him being alive on his toilet throne.
Yeah,
and he's like
you have to buy them to unlock them.
Yeah, you have to buy them to unlock them, and then it's basically a challenge where it says like you have to use this gun 15 times, get 15 kills in one match, or use this grenade 20 times. And it's kind of cool because I think that like anybody who's still playing this game at this point is so set in their ways with their guns and their items, and it's forcing you to get outside of your comfort zone.
It feels like high school vocabulary where they're like, use this word in 3 sentences.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, fine. You know, like, oh, go use smoke grenades. I'm like, why would I use smoke grenades? And then because everyone's trying to get this crap with the smoke grenades,
everywhere.
It's just, which totally changes the game.
That's awesome.
And I think it was one of those things where they're like, yeah, smoke grenades are awesome. This game is going to be nuts with them. And nobody used them, and they were like, use the friggin' smoke grenades. We worked hard on those.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. It's cool. I'm like level 32 in that, I think. Like I
finally just hit 50.
Damn, took a minute.
Took a long time.
Yeah, but it's cool because there is this like trudge between, I would say like level 25 and 45 probably.
The one between 42 and 50 is.
Yeah,
it's like crawling through mud.
So it's a long slow burn, and I think the DLC really kind of helps flesh that out and give you something to work towards. And like
I really like Greedo also.
Greedo's awesome.
Greedo's really
I
cool.
haven't played a lot of Battlefront, but I think that I probably would for the Jabba stuff.
Yeah, you should check
really
that
fun.
map out.
He's my favorite Star Wars character.
Yep.
He's
like
a good guy.
all of that sounds awesome.
Also when you unlock one of his weapons, he just like starts talking to you, and he's like, and you're
like,
in
the middle of a match.
And you're like, I don't know what you're saying. He just starts shouting at you in Huttese.
That's
and
so great.
So it's like you're getting this
man.
voicemail, and he's like, yes, you did a good job, and you've unlocked Bosk's gun.
It's really cool.
That's so cool.
Real
do we have time for one more question?
One more.
Is nobody knocking at the door yet?
Not that I know.
Do we want to do bro culture, gamer fatigue, or PlayStation Plus? You want to pick, Alana?
All right, I don't mind. Any of the above.
Any of the above. That's not helping. What
if we
about
answer
you,
them
Max?
all
What's
very
bro
quickly?
culture? Let's talk about bro culture.
Jeremy Vecchi says, I forgot to say Dallas John Brewer for the last question. Jeremy Vecchi says,
didn't.
I did?
I thought that was a masculine-ass name.
Long day. I'd love to hear you all, especially Alana, talk about gaming bro culture. I'm a straight male in my mid-30s, but still one of the most frustrating things about trying to play co-op online shooters on my PS4 is finding people to team up with who don't talk like outrageous, homophobic misogynists. Thoughts, tips, want to be my friends? Heart emoticon beyond. First things first, go over to the Podcast Beyond group. Join up with them, play games with them. That is a giant 10,700 person passionate group of people who's probably only 1% misogynist and homophobic. So find people there.
Odds.
Like it's really find like the communities online, and I think like NeoGAF's probably another place where you can head. Where like ultimately there's a little bit of accountability because you met these people through something that is tied to somewhat of a real name.
Yeah.
From there, I don't really know like. Aside from pretending the problem doesn't exist and just joining up with your actual friends, I don't really know how you solve the issue of bro culture in video games. I
don't really think that you can.
No.
It's changing.
Yeah.
I basically just never play games online multiplayer unless I'm like doing it completely on mute and everyone's mics
Right.
are muted. I basically play multiplayer games.
Turn the
solo.
mic on for your friends. You know?
That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Like,
There's
do
no
private
other way
parties,
that I
chat,
will ever
whatever.
talk to someone online because of that kind of stuff. Just made it like unpleasant.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 60 hours into Battlefront, and I've never heard a single stranger speak.
Yeah,
I
just basically how I
played Battlefront with Mitch Dyer and his dad. That was kind of weird. Because
His dad loves that
his
game.
His dad has like 120 hours in that game.
That's
it's
crazy.
insane.
That's nuts.
Yeah. But yeah, like I don't really turn my mic on, and I think that the bro culture does shift, but it's like there's that kind of the type of people who are like it's the kind of people who are going to talk to the person in the bathroom stall next to them. Like
Yeah.
there's this sort of anonymous, like not everyone does that. Not everyone's
Yeah.
going to make small talk at the urinal. Like some people just want to go in there and do their business. And like,
Yeah.
like I think that there are plenty of people who are just like, you know what, I'm going to play the game, and you can connect with them. Like, I mean, you play games with your friends, like so.
Well, I mean, it took how many dozens of years to get to the point where if you are the kind of person to say the N-word, you're whispering it now because you're in the ultimate. You're actually in a minority of people who are okay with saying that. But I think homophobic slang is we are probably 10 years away from that being so deep corner in the pocket of hateful people. It's happening. Like we will get to the point in our lives where if you still talk like that, people look at you like, what? Like I had a grandfather who like kind of racist, and he died like 5 years ago, and he was like, I don't want to go to the Olive Garden for my birthday. And we were like, why? And he was like, oh, because there's a lot of, and he said this like, he said a racist word for black people that I hadn't heard in my entire life. And I had to actually look it up because it was so old that it was like, wow, this guy is going to the grave with this word. Like you're holding on to this for a long ass time.
Yeah.
But that was like the
There's
idea.
a name I've not heard, and
It was like
before you were born.
The idea of hearing something that old and so racist was so ridiculous to me that it transcended hateful and actually became funny. That it was somebody would be so stubborn that
Just
they would
stick
hold
with
on to
that one
something.
word.
Yeah, that you're going to hold. It's like seeing a guy driving the world's oldest car. You're like, you're still on that
he's
thing?
like those,
Yeah.
and you
And
say
there's
the word,
smoke
and then
coming out of
right
it, and
away
you're
on
like-
like a penny farthing
Yeah,
bicycle.
like you're still doing that. So
we're getting
I don't
kicked
know.
out. We're
Yeah.
getting kicked out. We're
So-
getting kicked out. The show is over. We tried to go as long as we could.
We are very close to coming to a day and age where hearing people talk like that will be ridiculous. Although by then there will be new slangs and new horrible things for people to say. Because just like good words, bad words are constantly being invented, and there are always new ways to piss people off.
I'm gonna go say some bad words right now because we're getting kicked out of this nice podcast room. If you enjoy this podcast, let us know on Twitter. I'm Max Scoville. He's Agent Bizzle, and she is
Also,
Charlanazard.
please pull out an app. You can download the IGN app on iOS, PS4, or Xbox.
Use apps. They're cool and a great time. Get the
We
one on
weren't
PS4.
told to say that at all.
PS4 is number one. Check out Ratchet and Clank, and video games are
very good.
fun. We love you. Go to that Facebook group. Make some friends who will talk to you on the microphone without saying the racial slurs, unless you both are into racial slurs.
Play
And
Dark
hopefully
Souls
just
3.
don't be
That's right.
hurtful. All right. We
day.
love you. Good night. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Beyond.